And would like to welcome Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. Jamil, first, is this the last American prisoner that the Taliban has?
Well, look, there are a number of Americans and American citizens, green card holders that are in Afghanistan that are still trying to get their way out. So while there may or may not be other prisoners specifically, there was a lot of Americans, U.S. permanent residents, who need to get out of Afghanistan, who are still stuck there. The Taliban are essentially holding back, knowing they worked with us as part of our time in Afghanistan.
So right now, what exactly is the status of relations between the United States and the Taliban?
Well, we still haven't recognized the Taliban as the official government of Afghanistan. I think part of what's going on here is that may be in the cards. The president made clear that without getting Mark Friedrichs back, that we wouldn't be able to recognize them. That being said, I think there's a lot more things that we ought to get before we recognize the Taliban government, if we're going to do that at all. These are, by the way, the people that hosted Osama bin Laden on the eve of 9/11. And even though we did make a deal with them to leave Afghanistan, it's not clear we should ever give them recognition, particularly given the way they're treating their own people, women and the like in that country. Hugely problematic, not consistent with American values and ideals. And so, TBD on how that plays out, Tabitha.
And what could this mean for other American prisoners, like, for instance, Brittany Griner in Russia?
Well, what it does say is that we're willing to make trades, and not sure that's a good thing, right? You have Mark Friedrichs captured in just a year before the U.S. left Afghanistan. We went through a negotiation with the Taliban about leaving Afghanistan, and Mark Friedrichs was not part of that deal, and now we gave up another Taliban detainee, just like we had done with the Taliban 5 when we got Bo Bergdahl back a number of years back, right? That suggests to the Russians that maybe Victor Bout isn't the end of the deal. We've already offered Victor Bout, this notorious arms dealer, right? They're going to try and get more out of us. They're pushing us to get a German prisoner out, a former FSB officer who killed somebody there, right? This tells them they've got leverage, not necessarily a good thing. So while I'm happy to get Mark back, I think it's really a problem that we keep negotiating with these regimes over Americans that they have unlawfully detained.
What is the other alternative, though, in order to get Americans back other than negotiations?
Yeah, Tabitha, that's a great question, right? One of the things I wish we had done when it came to Afghanistan was we made this deal to leave Afghanistan. We actually moved the time frame of that up from what the Trump administration had agreed to allow the Taliban to assert control of that country sooner. We could have made Mark Friedrichs part of that deal. We didn't. We did make certain parts of the deal with the Taliban, like letting American citizens and green card holders out. They didn't uphold their end of that bargain. We've got to say to these countries that we're negotiating with, you got to do your part. You got to give us more for these deals. We're negotiating the JCPOA, once again, the nuclear deal with Iran. Yeah. We got to make American prisoners and Iranian support of terrorism overseas part of that deal. The administration hasn't done that this far. We got to be more aggressive in our negotiations with these adversarial nation states.
What about other prisoners of war? Does the United States have any other prisoners that are captive in other places right now?
There are American citizens and green card holders all around the world, places like Venezuela, where there are a number of Citgo executives, right? Iran, where there are a number of Americans who have gone there to do business or to work there, who've been detained along with their family members, right? We still have folks in Russia, as you pointed out, Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner, right? So there are a number of countries around the world. Rwanda, there's an American green card holder there. So there are a number of places around the world where we want to get Americans out. What we can't do in all those scenarios is offer, drug smugglers like we did here, or arms dealers like we have with the Russians to get these folks out. These people have been convicted in American courts of crimes committed here in the United States. We can't just let all those folks out. We've got to indicate to these countries, you've got to not be taking American prisoners hostage. And if you do, we're going to leverage all sorts of pressure on you, not just make trades.
What about the opposite? Is the United States holding any individuals from other nations that, in the future, just like we just saw, could be used in negotiations to get Americans back?
Typically we don't do that sort of thing, Tabitha. We don't take prisoners for the purpose of negotiating them. We do, of course, under the rule of law with independent federal judges, identify people who violated American law and then prosecute them, with a jury. If we convict them, they're held in prison. That's the case of Victor Bout, the notorious arms dealer. That's the case of this Taliban leader who supported the Taliban movement when it came to power in Afghanistan. We had him on heroin smuggling charges, smuggling $15 million of heroin into the United States, right? We convicted him. He served a 17-year plus sentence, and we've now decided to commute that sentence and allow him out. But, these are not people we're detaining unlawfully. They're convicted and prosecuted on American law in that fairest system of justice in the world.
And this individual, he was known as like the Pablo Escobar, if you will, of Asia. That's how influential he was. Can you tell me a little bit more about him?
Well, he's a notorious heroin dealer. He did help essentially finance the Taliban government that came into power back in the early 2000s that supported Osama bin Laden and backed him when he conducted those terrorist attacks against the United States. So in a lot of ways, he's the financier behind the support of the architect of the 9/11 attacks. And that's what's hugely problematic. That's part of why it was so important for us to convict him on these drug smuggling charges, keep him in American prison. And now him being out is hugely problematic. We saw the Taliban 5 that we transferred in to get Bo Bergdahl back. They've risen to power, and they are the controlling individuals in this new Taliban government. You see what's happening in Afghanistan there, both to American citizens and green card holders that are still left there, but also to the situation of women in that country. It is hugely problematic. We shouldn't let American detainees and prisoners become the leaders of a country that's going to cause huge problems in the world.
Jamil Jaffer, as always, we appreciate you coming on and explaining.